4 years. And one of the reasons why we wanted to have you all here today is to remind folks of the crisis that was created that we are still dealing with. When you talk about numbers and you say 450,000, all right, and then you say 300,000 are still unaccompanied, are still unaccounted for, at least partially. And then when you look at the great work we've done in a year, 100,000+, that's all great, but there's still a tremendous amount of work left to do. I mean, and will we be finished in a year? No. I mean, this is a problem that was created for a long time. It's hard to find. I mean, what Acting Director Salazar talked about is true. Like you have over 81,000 addresses in this country had multiple unaccompanied minors associated with those addresses. And that's the crisis we're dealing with.
And on the UFC fight.
I'm not going to talk about the UFC fight. We're just here to talk about this.
If he does order that it be blocked?
I'm not going to talk about the UFC fight. We're here just to talk about why we're here today. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just a clarifying question on that. Why would children not be eligible for U or T visas even if they've aged out? And second, if I can, are there still efforts to expand child and family detention for processing these people or these migrant children?
Who wants to answer the first question? You answer the first question? Go ahead.
Yes, if we identify that they're victims of crime, which is what the 26 crimes under the U visa, or human trafficking, right, held against their will for commercial sex or forced labor, they will still be eligible, of course.
So those people aren't being, or those children, or if they've aged out, they're not being deported?
Even if they've aged out, if you're like the laws here, if you are a victim of those crimes and law enforcement certifies them as such, then they're entitled to those.
Other questions?
Oh, sorry, and the second on detention.
Yeah, what's the second question?
Are there still efforts to expand child and family detention?
To expand child and family detention? I don't know if that's Markwayne.
So we have we only have one family detention center right now, and it's in Texas because of President Trump's secure border, and we have zero coming into the country illegally at this point. The detention center is not even close to being at capacity, so we're those that are being held there, we're looking for placements and trying to get them back to the country where they came from and enter the country legally from.
Just on zero people crossing the border, the SAVER program run by counties in Arizona through California, they are saying that they're still seeing unapprehended crossers. The apprehension rate is 33% there, so people are still crossing the border.
So when we start talking about the zero entries, there's no one that we are apprehending that we're allowing into the country. I'm sure there are some gotaways because we're still building the wall to secure the border, but that number is extremely small. We went from having tens of thousands a week, sometimes in a day, to single-digit numbers. But we aren't able to see that. That's why we're building the wall. That's why President Trump has made it a priority to get the wall built from the Pacific to the Gulf of America. We will have the primary wall completed probably this time next year, and we'll just have very small corridors for individuals that's going to be trying to enter the country legally, where we can allow them to enter if they truly have a claim or have the right paperwork in place. But we are allowing no individuals to claim asylum to come into this country unless they can truly prove by legal statute what they have to require, not because they say the correct things on a handwritten card, but prove that they have an asylum need.
Thank you.
Secretary Mullin. Thank you very much. Question for the Attorney General and question for Secretary Mullin. Attorney General, I heard Secretary Mullin call this true neglect at best. I'm wondering, what is the evidence that government officials knowingly participated? In other words, are you alleging that the previous administration knowingly approved sponsor placements despite knowing there was evidence of fraud? Or are you alleging failures in screening and oversight? And can you just talk about the evidence that might support that distinction and be specific about how it applies to a certain number of cases?
So I don't think it can be disputed that the last administration knew this was happening. I mean, putting aside the public reporting about it at the time for many years during the Biden administration, we didn't go and hire forensic accountants or rock star federal agents to find out the data we're showing you. It's data that the government had and that government possessed. And so there were individuals occupying positions of leadership in this country that knew this was happening and this is what Secretary Mullin was talking about, either didn't care, encouraged it or a little bit of both. I don't think that that can be disputed. Like, I don't think you're going to get DHS officials from the last administration telling you, oh my gosh, we're shocked. Wait, you're telling me there were hundreds of thousands of unaccompanied minors? Oh my God, I had no idea. That's not true. Of course I knew. And so I don't, and when you talk about the outrage that is hopefully coming through from what Secretary Mullin said and what I'm saying now, it should be outrage amongst everybody that this happened. And it did happen. And so whether somebody closed their eyes to it and whether somebody just, was negligent, or whether it was something much more intentional and part of a policy that was in place to literally just have open borders, including unaccompanied children who were being abused and trafficked. That's not for me to answer, but I will tell you that this is not something that we had to dig far and deep to uncover. I mean, we've been talking about it since January 20th, and we'll continue talking about it. But yeah, so I don't look. I'm not indicting the past leadership right here on this podium, but you also cannot ignore what was an incredible dereliction of duty at best.
To say that it was encouraged, though, is quite a charge. I mean, what evidence do you have of that?
Say, what happens of what?
To say that it was encouraged, this behavior, is quite a charge.
Well, you can insert whatever word you want. I said encourage. If you know there's a problem and you're in a position of leadership to stop it and you don't stop it, what word should I use? I mean, I use the word encouraged. If it isn't as if this was a single day problem. You have a situation that happened over a number of years. They knew it was happening. It was brought to their attention it was happening, and they didn't do anything to stop it. As a matter of fact, when you look at the end of 2024, and there were 300,000, like you just think in your mind that number and that number of young children, and then we had no idea where they were in this country. I mean, I continue to use the words encourage. So.
I want to give you an opportunity to respond to that and answer that. I also want to ask you specifically about some of the sanctuary cities as well as where these kids are coming from, if you can be more specific about some of the problem cases. I also do have an off-topic question, but go ahead.
So I don't think I need to explain what I said any more than what I said. It's negligent at best and criminal at worst. When you're not taking care of the kids that you're entrusted to take care of, negligence can turn into criminal. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to go after the individuals, but you can't, as Acting Attorney General said, you can't just simply turn a blind eye to it and say it wasn't happening. You can't even deny that. Everybody in this room knows it was happening. It was being reported at the time it was happening. And there was no outrage, and no one tried to hold these people accountable. And kids now have been paying for it. They've been getting raped over and over and over again because this previous administration chose not to enforce our nation's laws and protect the most vulnerable. That is shameful.
Lastly, I want to ask about immigration policies that are already shaping the World Cup. At least one referee from Somalia and one Iraqi team staff member were denied entry at U.S. airports in recent days, and dozens of fans have been
What did you
denied.
call it? Did you call it politics?
No.
What'd you say? I don't forget how you started that question.
Policies.
Yeah, policies are, we're not going to allow people that have criminal or maybe perceived to have criminal ties to come into this country. I don't care what your situation is. I'm not going to get into why we denied this individual, but there's a reason why this person was denied. Now, the left media wants to go out there and report and say this guy's a victim of, because we're, anti-Somalia. No, we're not. We work closely with FIFA and the administration on a regular basis. We talk to FIFA and their directors constantly. Anybody that was denied, we made the case for and showed them why they were denied. Now, to get into the specifics of it, I'm not getting into the specifics of it. But Iran chose that was a difficult path. If there was any country we wasn't going to allow in here, Iran would probably be the reason why we wouldn't allow them in here. But we did, and we worked closely with the individuals with restrictions. And so there was multiple, more than just these two, there was multiple individuals throughout. We have a World Cup here. We got a lot of countries that doesn't exactly have access to the United States, and we did a phenomenal job on getting as many people cleared as we could, but some people just can't clear. And that's just the way it works with getting a visa to come to this great country. Yes.
Thank you. How does the partnership with law enforcement that you've described change your ability to find and protect these children? And then secondly, how many of these children have you been able to reunite with their families in foreign countries?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the 287G program, which is the greatest partnership we can have. It's shameful that we have governors like in Virginia and governors in New York and governors in California and other sanctuary states that are refusing to allow their law enforcement to join into the 287G program, where we simply go after the worst of the worst. And we say to the local law enforcement and the state enforcement that if you will help us, you don't have to enforce, just if you run across these individuals, keep them. We'll pay you for your time. We'll even give you some of the equipment, and we'll pay for some of the equipment. Just hold them, and we'll come pick them up. And we have sanctuary states now that are popping up, and like New Jersey, that are saying, no, it's against the law for any state agency or any local agency to join in the 287G program to enforce our nation's laws. I don't even know how that's possible, to be honest with you. Why wouldn't you want to take the worst of the worst off your streets? Why would we allow it? Let me just give you one statistic. 50% of all the murders that's happened in Fairfax County are by illegals. 41 individuals in Tennessee have been killed this year by illegals, well, in the last 12 months. Why? Why would any politician say that we wouldn't want to get those individuals off our streets? Why wouldn't they want to partner with DHS and the 287G program to help rid this type of activity out of our country and out of your communities? And I can't make sense of stupidity sometimes. We allow political theater to get in the way of actual law enforcement. And all we're saying is let's protect our streets. And let's make sure that our kids can go play in our yards, that you guys can go on a run in the mornings. You that live in Washington, D.C., you know what it was like 2 years ago? What's it like today? Can you go run the streets? Can you go run the Capitol and feel safe? Could you have done that 18 months ago? No. And you know that. But because of President Trump's strong push for law enforcement, our communities and our cities are becoming safe again. Why wouldn't any elected official want the same in their backyard?
You spoke about Mayor Mondami and sanctuary cities. How do you envision the operations from your department in New York or other sanctuary cities as compared to what happened in Minnesota or California prior to you being secretary?
When you take somebody like Mondami, who is just this radical socialist, that's anti-law enforcement, anti-police, it's shameful because NYPD is awesome. They're phenomenal to work with. They have the best crowd procedures. They have the best law enforcement agency. I'd put them up against just about any city around the country. And they have a pride about them of doing so. But you got a mayor that's not allowing them to do their job. And it's shameful. All these guys in the NYPD, they just want to go to work. They want to do something that they feel like they were called to do. And they're great at it. But they got a leader that's handcuffing them. And hopefully the people of New York will wise up and get a true leader in there in a few years.
How would your operations look different than Minnesota or California?
Well, if we had partnership with NYPD, we could clean that city up in 30 days. I mean that sincerely. We could clean that up with President Trump's leadership and us flexing with the ability we have. We've seen it happen in Memphis. We've seen it happen in New Orleans. We've seen it happen right here in Washington, D.C. We know how to do it. We just got to have, politics set aside and let law and order be the mainstream of why we decide we're going to do what we're going to do.
Secretary, I have one on topic and one off topic. You said you and the mayor don't get along, and you're expressing concern about some of the governors in sanctuary states, as you call them. What are you willing to do to bridge that gap?
I'll work with anybody that's wanting to work with us. When I got sworn into office, I said, I don't care if you got a blue state, blue city, red city. I don't care what it is. I'll work as hard to protect my backyard as I will to protect yours. I don't see color when we start talking about law enforcement. What I see is criminals, and we're going after them. We've reached out multiple times through this whole FIFA, and we can't even get past the first person at the desk. So I'd sit down and talk to him anytime. I don't really think we're going to get anywhere. I think President Trump tried that, and you see the way he treated President Trump. I mean, President Trump literally brought him into the Oval Office, let him stand beside him, tried to actually give the olive branch and say, listen, we can set our political difference together, but President Trump loves New York City. He loves the Knicks too, obviously. And the fact that the way the mayor treated him once he left the Oval Office will tell you what type of man he is.
How many of these,
Mr. Attorney General.
81,000 that you've got identified there, how many of those have criminal cases that you're trying to pursue?
I'll let our acting Attorney General answer that.
What was the question about? How many are?
81,000 addresses. How many do you know have committed crimes? The people there have committed crimes?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but just, it's not as, the point of that number isn't that there are 81,000 criminals. It's just a sheer number. So some of them, it might make sense why there's 3 unaccompanied minors that are not related in one house, maybe, you know, depending on the circumstance. So it's not that every single one is a crime, but when you heard what the work that is being done, it's as simple as a site visit or as simple as a forms check to make sure that everything's in order. So for some of those 81,000, yes, I'm sure it's fine. For some of them, there are horrible crimes being committed. And so we announced a couple charges today. Tyson talked about ongoing cases that I think, you know, that we're working on. It is a big priority in every U.S. Attorney's office. And so I think that I expect you'll continue to see the results of that. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.